More than a dozen members of the Hells Angels are being arraigned on criminal charges at the downtown courthouse.
We start with breaking news out of East Spokane. Federal agents and Spokane police raided the Hells Angels clubhouse this morning. Police only telling 4 News Now they had a search warrant.
17 members and associates of the Hells Angels are facing criminal charges in a violent attack on 3 African-American men in Ocean Beach back in June.
As of today, the Hells Angels is considered the most feared and the most ruthless motorcycle club in the world. They live dangerously and fear no man. Over the years, what started as a motorcycle club has wielded so much power despite frequent raids and arrests by the police. With approximately 3,500 members, the Hells Angels have hundreds of chapters in over 50 countries and are now spread across the globe. Several countries have banned the club over fears of them wreaking havoc. Today, we will be looking at a man who got the Hells Angels banned overseas. But before we dive into that, let's take a look at how Hells Angels even started. History of the Hells Angels. On 17th March 1948, the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club was founded in Fontana, California, not by the late Ralph Sonny Barger, as you might have thought. The club came into existence when a group of smaller motorcycle clubs decided to merge to form a formidable force. While this is still up for debate, the early days of Hells Angels are credited to motorcycle enthusiast Otto Friedli, even though Friedli had denied and disputed the claim several times. According to the motorcycle club's official history, they got the name from a World War II veteran, Arvid Olsen, better known as Flying Tiger. It is believed that Olsen was a close friend of Friedli after the war but never joined the club. During the war, Arvid Olsen flew with a squadron nicknamed the Hells Angels, a name they got from a film Howard Hughes produced in 1930. It was from the squadron nickname that Friedli adopted the name for the club. It is still unclear who started the club, but our focus is on how a small motorcycle club from California defied all odds to become the most popular, feared, and powerful 1% motorcycle club in the world. The Hells Angels had nothing to their names. However, as time went by, they came up with a structure and certain rules for people who wanted to be admitted to the club. The rules were eventually formalized and implemented. One of the rules was that members must be voted into the club unanimously by all members of the chapter. They also had a very strict dressing rule. Vests were strictly an important part of the dress code and must never be destroyed. The rules also featured the Code of Silence, a mandatory rule that members must remain quiet about the activities of the group. In other words, what happens in the club stays in the club. They have no room for snitches. They also agreed that women are not allowed to be members of the club. However, they have some sort of arrangement for ladies who want to join the club. They're usually called the old ladies and have rules there are to live by. A veteran old lady once anonymously revealed that they are taught to respect their men, and one of the best ways to go about it was to not touch their vest or bike or lean against their patch when riding. Later on, Hells Angels caught the attention of Hollywood, and movies like Hells Angels on the Wheels, The Wild Angels, and Hells Angels 69 projected the club to the world and inspired many people in different parts of the world to look for the closest chapter to them and become a member of the legendary Outlaw Motorcycle Club. The Hells Angels was still assumed to be a decent club of bikers until the Altamont Festival incident. The Altamont Festival in partnership with Boxter. In December 1969, the Hells Angels were hired as stage security at the Altamont Festival, a free concert by the popular British rock band, the Rolling Stones. According to reports, the club members were given $500 worth of beer as payment for their service. All they had to do was keep things orderly, but they did the exact opposite of that.
I don't like unity. That guy's got a gun out there and he's shooting at the stage. Hey, there's that. He's got a gun.
Hey people, come on, let's be cool.
During the concert, the club members thought the best way to keep the rowdy crowd in check was by resorting to violence.
What happened here anyway?
Yeah, he pulled out a gun.
He did?
Yes, the Hells Angels took the gun away from him. One of them has it now, he showed it to me. And they proceeded to put him down on the ground and start kicking him. And he has a couple stab wounds in his back and one over his ear. Tried to keep him alive, and when we got here, the doctor checked him out, and that was it.
Pronounced him dead.
At one point, an 18-year-old black fan called Meredith Hunter got into a fight with a member of the clubs. He believed the gang members had treated him that way because of his color. When he brought out his gun in self-defense, they stabbed him. The band saw the trouble but never knew what had gone down. So they continued with their show, since ending the show that early would likely cause a riot. In the end, the event was a mess. The Stones were angry that they were being blamed for the chaos. On the other hand, the Hells Angels were angry as they felt the band had let them take the fall for Hunter's death. After this incident, the Hells Angels became more notorious. A partnership with Willem van Boxtel, an unruly youth who idolized Sonny, almost ruined the reputation of the club. Boxter, better known as Big Willem, was a rebellious youth who looked up to Sonny Barger and the Hells Angels. In 1973, Boxtel founded his biker gang, which he named the Kreidler Plug East. The next year, Boxter mercilessly beat the owner of a convenience store to celebrate his 18th birthday. But that was not all. Boxter later came back to beat the man up again after he called the police and got Boxter arrested for assault. In September of that same year, Boxter and his gang members stormed a school where they beat 2 teachers with some schoolboys and schoolgirls. The husband of one of the 2 school teachers attempted to rescue his wife from his hands, but Boxter made sure he taught him a lesson and sent him rolling down the stairwells. As if he had not done enough, Boxter left the school and went across the street to beat the owner of a snack bar. He smashed the poor man's head so hard that he landed in the hospital. The gangster would not stop his rampage until the Amsterdam police arrived at the scene to stop the madness. Eventually, Boxter and 11 of his gang members were found guilty of assault and sentenced to 6 years behind bars. However, Boxter managed to appeal his sentence, and it was reduced to 6 weeks due to age. Once he was out, Boxter began to call his gang the Hells Angels. At this point, he never sought permission from Sonny, which was a dangerous thing to do. When gang members from a British outlaw biker gang called Mad Dogs came to Amsterdam, Boxtel and his followers welcomed them with beatings to prove to them that Amsterdam belonged to the Hells Angels. As a result of this violence, the city of Amsterdam decided to give Boxtel 172,500 guilders, which was equivalent to over $120,000 in 2006, to build a clubhouse for his gang. In return, he would stop being violent. This showed to what extent the city was willing to go to avoid his trouble. They also added that they would be donating 21,300 guilders every year, which was equivalent to $12,772 in 2006 to him, so he could hold charity events and teach young people about motorcycle riding. In 1977, Sonny heard about the Golden Boy who had been wreaking havoc using the name of his gang, Hells Angels. He decided to reward Boxter by recognizing him as a member of the real Hells Angels family and giving him the approval to use the club's Death's Head logo. On October 28, 1978, 2 American Hells Angels from the Oakland chapter came down to Amsterdam to give Boxtel his full patch and declared him the president of a full-patch Hells Angel chapter. In the 1980s, the city of Amsterdam eventually ended Boxter's yearly grant after they realized that he spent all the money that was meant to go to charity on his clubhouse, which he named the Angel Place. Now that Boxtel had received the blessing of Sonny and was now the president of the Amsterdam Hells Angels chapter, he set to work and began expanding the Dutch Hells Angels. In 1980, Boxtel opened a new chapter in Haarlem, Ruthless Lysander De R. While the Amsterdam chapter operated quietly under the radar for some time, the Haarlem chapter did the opposite. The chapter was soon associated with all forms of violence while being led by Lysander De R. During Lysander's tenure, the Haarlem chapter went through a significant transformation. The chapter was known for its strict and aggressive culture. All members had to adhere to the directives of their leader. When Lysander assumed the presidency in 2014, his tenure was characterized by an excessive amount of criminal activities. In fact, this high level of violence and disregard for law and order extended beyond the borders of Haarlem, reaching neighboring towns. Smuggling, extortion, bribery, robbery, and all forms of criminal activities became the order of the day, all thanks to the Hells Angels chapter. In August 2014, the tension reached its peak, and things almost got out of hand when a rival motorcycle gang decided to organize a bike show in a venue repeatedly targeted by the Haarlem chapter. This didn't go well with members of the Haarlem Hells Angels chapter who resorted to multiple arson attacks. Amid the chaos, the building's owners and family constantly received threats from the club. This cycle of violence continued between 2014 and 2015 and was so crazy that about 3 rival clubhouses were burnt. Even the mayor of Haarlem was not spared and had his car burnt by the gang. It is believed that members of the Haarlem chapter set the mayor's car on fire as an act of revenge after he announced his plans to crack down on the activities of the gang in the city. These attacks and violence would later have long-lasting consequences for the motorcycle club. Reflecting on the incident, the mayor hammered on the deteriorating relationship between his office and the Hells Angels. Here's the thing, before Lysander took over, the mayor had a good relationship with the Haarlem Hells Angels chapter. They were on speaking terms, and he could have a telephone call with the former president anytime he wished. This way, the motorcycle club and the mayor's office have been able to work together and iron out issues. However, once another regime took over, they cut off all communication with the mayor, which caused the tension. Mongols versus Hells Angels. In April 2016, members of the Haarlem chapter were involved in a violent altercation with members of the Mongols motorcycle club. The chaos that erupted in the lobby of a hotel soon got real as punches were thrown left and right, while furniture was turned into weapons. It was only a matter of time before sounds of gunshots filled the air. No life was lost during the scuffle. Nevertheless, it was another proof that the Haarlem chapter was always resorting to violence instead of resolving matters amicably. A Dutch newspaper got insider information about what motivated the conflict. According to the insider who remained anonymous, Lysander fed on disunity and often turned the motorcycle club into a battleground during his tenure. He was described as a tyrant and manipulative leader who only saw himself as the sovereign ruler and disregarded the opposition. But that was not all. Lysander would go to any lengths to ensure that his regulations were mercilessly enforced. Even though some charter had issues with his style of leadership and his tyrant moves, they remained passive, hoping for a resolution to the chaos. Fast forward to July 2018, the law caught up with Lysander. He was found guilty of extortion, threats, and violent acts, and was sentenced to 9 years behind bars. Not long after, the Dutch government decided to ban the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club in May 2019, claiming that what began as a motorcycle club has evolved over the years into a criminal organization. However, you would think Lysander would accept defeat and quietly serve his jail term, since he contributed largely to the ban of the Hells Angels in the Netherlands. But of course, he was a tough nut to crack. He did the exact opposite. A few days after the judge banned the Hells Angels, Lysander, who was still behind bars, founded a new motorcycle club, which he named the Hardliners MC. The club's logo is almost identical to that of the Hells Angels. It was clear as crystal that this was a deliberate act of defiance. But Lysander did more. Even though he had been expelled from the Hells Angels, likely due to the misconduct that led to the Dutch ban, he appeared eager to provoke the controversy. Not only was the logo the same colors as the Hells Angels, it had similar typography, except that instead of a skull emblem, the Hardliners rigged a shark emblem. In recent years, the Hardliners Motorcycle Club has experienced some growth. It is believed that the notable growth is a result of the club's lenient membership rules. Unlike the Haarlem Charter, the Hardliners have made it easier for people to join the club and have parted ways with some of their strict policies. As a result, they have experienced faster growth and are spreading to other parts of the country. Interestingly, they are also no longer on the radar of law enforcement, since the authorities are now focused on busting major and established motorcycle gangs like the Sadudara MC and several others. As of January 2022, Hardliners boast about 200 members spread across 22 charters. Since the founding of the Hardliners MC, the club has grown into one of the largest OMGs in the Netherlands. On the other hand, Lysander is still in jail doing what he knows how to do best, threatening violence, manipulating the inmates, and asserting his dominance as the unofficial leader of the inmates. According to sources from the jail, Lysander has turned the jail into his playground and is easily coordinating criminal activities from behind bars. The former Hells Angels leader has wielded such authority over the years that he enjoyed comfort and several extraordinary privileges. For example, he dictates the schedule for vacuuming and eats any meals he desires. In other words, he calls the shots, and the prison staff are at his beck and call. Lysander can move across the entire prison and has access to staff computers and phones. He has intimidated both the staff and the inmates, thereby creating an environment where no one would want to step on his toes. Any allegations leveled against Lysander in prison have always miraculously disappeared, while the one who filed them faces the consequences. Even though there has been surveillance footage of the Hardliners founder breaking the law in prison, the government has turned a blind eye over fears of repercussions. The most recent development involves the authorities relocating him to another prison after they found a hit list of the prison staff he wanted to harm in his cell. His lawyers have, however, refuted these claims. On March 8, 2024, the Dutch government banned the Hardliners MC, citing that the club has encouraged, facilitated, and ordered members to commit criminal activities. But as we all know, this is definitely not the end of the club, but probably the beginning of a new beginning.